Hi, welcome back to Cedar Porch Homestead. I'm JR, and we recently just got back from a trip to East Tennessee where we were fortunate enough to take a tour of a modern, innovative, industrial model robotic dairy, which was fascinating to see, but it started to make me think about what our ambitions or what we wanted to do in the future and how that was going to relate on maybe how we were going to move forward in our homesteading journey. First off, let me just say how amazing this dairy was. The innovation, the technology that they were able to bring in to this dairy to create what was just an amazing commercial industrial model of what agriculture can be. And this particular dairy considers themselves to be a seed to table type setup, and that's because they actually farm their acreage to create the grains and the feed supplements for the rations that they then feed their dairy animals that then they milk. They have a cheese production place on the premises to where they take 10% of their milk product and create their own cheeses. From that, they have a cafe that you can sit down, you can eat. We had a grilled cheese, a ham and cheese. We had a ton of things off their menu as a family of 4, and they were all absolutely delicious. We then partaked in a little bit of their milkshakes. They're on their front porch while sitting on their rocking chairs, and it really just brought this whole nostalgic feeling of what farms are, or what farms could be, and it was just really pretty being able to sit out on the front lawn. We threw some bags at the cornhole boards. We got to take a little bit of a look inside their cheese processing facility. It was overall just a brilliant take on what a large-scale family farm dairy could actually be. The tour was a fascinating experience. Our tour guide was a self-proclaimed retired administrator for a school district there locally. He was extremely informative, and you could tell he was really kind of on the point of being giddy, sharing, his passion and really his passion for teaching and his passion for how this dairy operates. He let us know that he was part of this dairy or worked for some of the farmers that made up this dairy back when he was a kid. So this kind of has been in his blood for a long time, and you could just tell he was extremely passionate about teaching on this particular subject. Now, when we entered this barn, it is a completely automated robotic system, which I didn't even know existed. This was completely new for us to experience, and it was, genius, really. It was extremely brilliant how everything worked together. The main thing we saw when we first walked in is they actually have these robots that milk the cow, and not just set up the milk or they do everything. The cow walks in. Now they have collars that reads as soon as the cow walks into the stand, and it lets the computer know whether or not this cow is ready to be milked or not. Now these cows are milked 3 times a day, and the machine actually knows when the appropriate time for this cow to be milked or when they're going to supply the most milk would be. So when the cow walks in, if it's not time for that cow to be milked, the gate opens, the cow walks out, the next cow walks in, and this is all free choice. Now the cows choose to come in because they are then rewarded with, if it's time to be milked, a tray comes out, a feed ration, which would be the equivalent of me chasing down a peanut butter cup ice cream, because that's one of my favorites. So they're being treated to come be milked. So it's all a voluntary basis for them to come in and be milked. So if they come in, it reads the collar, it's time for them to be milked, they get to then stand there. A feed ration is divvied out to them, and this machine or this robot actually knows how long it should take to milk this cow. So it rations that feed out at a rate that's going to keep that cow happy for the entirety of this milking. So if it's time for this cow to be milked, it cleans the udders, and this is all automated, which is just fascinating to watch. It's an automated cleaner that goes and cleans the teats in the udder. Then through lasers, it attaches the cups to each teat, and it starts the process of milking this cow. So in real time, this robot is able to test the milk for butterfat content, whether or not it's the volume of milk that it's taking in, because each cow is specific on how much they produce a day. And it also is testing for somatic cell count to find out whether or not these cows are sick or have mastitis. And if that's the case, it sends a text to the barn foreman that you have a sick cow so they can be treated. Not only that, that machine holds that milk for that particular cow, and if it's deemed that it is healthy or adequate for consumption, it is then pumped to the holding tanks for the milk. If it is deemed that it is not adequate for consumption, it's then pumped to another tank where the system then cleans itself and it's ready for the next cow. This barn in total houses over 400 cows. It has 8 of these robots that are milking 4 different sections of these cows. And each machine, we were told, cost about $250,000. So this is a big enterprise. It's a huge thing. It really is far removed from the hand milking that we once did. But it was, again, it was all the innovation and technology that the agricultural sector has just funneled into the dairy industry. And again, I will say, I am impressed. It's genius. It's brilliant. Probably one of the more humorous things that we saw as we were seeing these cows getting milked was that the more sweet tooth cows that would come in and it wasn't time for them to be milked, being rejected, and you could almost feel the disappointment as they didn't get that sweet treat and they had to exit back out into the barn as the next cow came into the stand. This is where I can say I'm extremely impressed with the automation and the innovative technologies that were brought into this business. But again, we are talking about a business. Their goal is to maximize volume, to increase profits. Now, their main goal might not necessarily be to create the healthiest, most holistic, regenerative product possible that is to increase wellness and well-being and heighten immune system that other foods might do. Because at the end of it, milk is a living food that we partake in to create wellness and regeneration in ourselves. But there's ways to do that that can also create wellness and regeneration in the soils that are producing that milk. In this particular industrial ag model, the cows are only getting sunlight through polycarbonate panels in the ceiling because they never go outside. They are confined to this barn. And the reason they're confined to this barn is because their entire environment can now be controlled. And the way it's controlled is through their feed, which is a ration product that they are given that is raised on the farm. Now, this was not talked about, but I'm sure it is following all the major industrial ag models that are used now for row crop, which means they are getting the top technology and herbicides and pesticides and possibly even the fertilizers to grow and create this ration that is then fed to the cows. Now, all those row crops are being harvested by big equipment that is burning the ever so dreadful fossil fuels. And again, I can't talk about how impressed I am with the brilliance of this system. I mean, they really have thought of everything from the scraper that comes every 2 hours to clean off the concrete floor of manure and waste, to the fact that they use sand for bedding because then they can take that sand and recycle it and clean it to be used again as bedding because it doesn't hold the rot or the decay that the carbonaceous diaper would or a carbon bedding would. And they get to reuse these things and it keeps their parasite load down. They're trying to do everything they can in this enclosed environment to make it the healthiest possible environment they can make. So having said all that, I believe this is most likely the apex of the industrial agricultural model, that their main focus would be to create the most volume of milk possible. And I think it would be fair to equate that to what our version as a homesteader would be, to create the most efficient dairy production on our own homestead. So let's do that. So I know I haven't named this particular dairy. I'm sure if you really think about it and do a little research, you could probably find which one I'm talking about. However, I'm not trying to pick a fight. I think what these guys are doing on the commercial industrial front is absolutely brilliant. I might not agree with everything they're doing just because I come from a different approach. I was an ag student. I have a degree in ag business, so I see the brilliance of what they are doing on this farm for the industrial model to create the most volume and maximize profits. However, after 20 years of doing this myself, after 10 years of really pushing in and doing this for a regenerative purpose and understanding or believing that it is our place and our need to actually create something better by building a foundation rather than pulling away from Mother Nature, adding to Mother Nature. I have a different viewpoint on this. So again, I'm not trying to pick a fight with the modern agricultural industry. I 100% agree and see what they are doing to create a business doing this. My main focus, and I think a lot of homesteaders out there are looking at what they can do for themselves to create maximum efficiency, but also to create a wellness and a holistic approach to their land, to regenerate their soils, to then create a healthier, more holistic approach. And let's see what it would look like if we were to do everything to maximum efficiency on our own homestead using maybe the numbers that this farm is using. Now, according to UT Institute of Agriculture, this farm utilizes about 4,490 acres of land to create the rations and the feed for their cows, and they're milking about 1,500 cows. So that actually equates somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3 acres per cow. So that's kind of the numbers I'm going to be using, because as a homesteader, we can be very efficient on small acreage. If you're a homesteader or you're thinking about homestead, you've looked into this before, you know we can be extremely efficient with the little bit of land we have. So here we go. So the first question is, can we actually raise a dairy animal on only 3 acres of pasture? And I will say 100% we can. Not only can we do that efficiently, we can keep it 100% grass-fed animal on that 3 acres. Now, will it be a Holstein? No, it probably won't be a Holstein. Will it be a Jersey? Well, it could be a Jersey, and I actually recommend a Jersey because their butterfat content is so much higher than the other dairy breeds that you can get a lot of other things from their milk production. But we're working with 3 acres. So the cool thing about Jerseys is they actually come in bite-sized versions of themselves now. And there are many Jerseys out there that still produce the 3 to 4 gallons of milk a day with that high butterfat content, but they're in a very small package that is extremely manageable for the homesteader. Now, naturally, a Holstein is going to generate 10 plus gallons of milk a day. They are a milk production machine. Don't get me wrong. So we're going to sacrifice 10 gallons a day to a Jersey that's only going to produce 3 to 4 gallons a day. But we're going to make up for that efficiency through other avenues as a homesteader. So through intensive rotational grazing, you can actually keep a cow-calf pair of mini Jerseys out on 3 acres where they will be extremely fat and happy. Now, if your pastures or your grasses are not a nutrient-dense native pasture that they're getting all the nutrition they need, at first you might have to supplement with hay or an alfalfa, but don't get me wrong, as you take these management tools and really intensely rotationally graze your land, that is going to be one of the things that you're going to be able to pull back from and not have to supplement as much or at all, because they are going to get everything they need from that nutritional ground. Because guess what? We're regenerating the soil. We're bringing back the pasture grasses. We're actually going to be producing a ground that can manage and keep a cow-calf pair extremely healthy and happy. But there's a couple things that we can probably do in this enterprise that are also going to maximize our profits or maximize our efficiency. So one way of maximizing efficiency is you're not just going to be running a cow-calf pair or a dairy animal on this 3 acres. Because through intentional rotational grazing, you can then start stacking enterprises that have symbiotic relationships that are going to continue to improve and regenerate your own soil. Now, the first thing that comes to mind, if you have a milk cow, and this is a family milk cow, we're not out there thinking about selling this milk because in some states you're not able to sell raw milk, or you have to go through a stringent policy or red tape to sell that raw milk. So I'm not encouraging that. What I'm talking about is taking that family milk cow that's going to produce all the milk, the butter, the cheeses that you need for your family. But there's also some other enterprises that you can stack on top using that family milk cow to then supplement these other that are going to feed back. Be patient, let's walk through this. So 3 to 4 gallons of milk a day is quite a bit for the standard family to 4 to 6. So what we're going to do with that excess milk or the leftover whey from making our cheeses is we're going to bring out feeder pigs to our place, and we're going to be feeding them on our kitchen scraps and also on our excess milk and whey. Now, are you going to be able to do a commercial size pig? That's going to be up to you whether or not you want to supplement those feed rations. We have fallen in love with the American guinea hogs because not only do they eat excess hay and grass and forage, they also do a wonderful job of growing fat on excess whey, excess milk, and our table scraps without really any need for us to supplement through grains that we're bringing in off farm. So as these little bacon generators are starting to grow, we also have them become part of our compost system. We're taking leaves, we're taking carbon, we're taking everything, excess hay, waste hay, everything that we can think of on the farm that is just spoilage, and we're throwing that really into their pen, and they're going to churn through it using that little plow they have on the front end of their nose, and they're going to be turning that compost on a regular basis while adding their own nitrogen benefits to it, and they're going to create amazing compost that then you can take and spread out on your pastures that is going to what? Create, regenerate, and build healthy soils. So while we have our little pig operation going on the side, back to the pastures, we're going to be adding some layer hens out to the pasture that we're going to be using mobile infrastructure, something that we can move behind the cows. Remember, we're intensely rotationally grazing these cows, so every time that they clear up with a paddock, we're going to be bringing those chickens right on top of where the cows were. And what these chickens are going to do is they're going to scratch through all those cow patties, picking out fly larvae and also other parasites and bugs and stuff that live in those manures. So they're going to be spreading that out, creating, again, great compost and great nitrogen benefits to your soil, while also making their own little deposits there on the pasture. And chicken manure is extremely high in nitrogen, and as long as you are moving those chickens behind the cows, there's not going to be a time for that nitrogen to build up and actually burn your soils. It's going to make it where it is bioavailable for your grasses, and they are going to thrive. And it really doesn't take long to see this in action. We did it on our farm before, and within 2 weeks of a chicken moving off that particular area, you would see a deep green pasture starting to emerge from where those chickens were, because the grasses just love that nitrogen deposit. So not only are you regenerating your soil, you're creating more topsoil. Your chickens are doing all your pasture sanitization and picking up all those parasites and spreading out manure. They're doing a lot of work. And what are you getting out of it? Well, you're getting little golden nuggets of deliciousness, because that's what those layers are going to do. They're going to provide you and your family with eggs, and any excess, obviously, you have the ability to then bless your neighbors or sell at a farmer's market or whatever you want to do with those eggs. We would take excess eggs as well and feed those to our pigs because, well, dirty eggs that we didn't want to clean or we didn't want to do things with, whatever it was, we just kept those on the farm and we kept feeding our animals, and it was just an amazing symbiotic relationship that we were able to create. So another big enterprise that has a symbiotic relationship with these grazing animals would be to bring out meat chickens to your land. Now there's a lot of pastured poultry information out there as far as the mobile tractors, what you can use. We've done it. We've done it here in our own backyard. Now that we have a backyard homestead of moving these chickens daily, and they are using the grass to supplement their feed. They're growing out. They're adding nitrogen and health to your soil. And at the end of it, you have a delicious, healthy version of what you can get at the store, but you've created this on your farm while also generating and creating better soils that are then going to grow native pasture grasses that are going to be healthier to feed your dairy animal that is then going to produce higher butterfat content, healthier milk for you and your family. Do you see how all this starts to work in conjunction with one another? Now, not only can you do the chickens and the pigs, there's a ton of other things that you can add in. You can do goats, you can do sheep, you can do rabbits. All of these are going to, if used in conjunction with a rotational program, are going to add soil health. Now, on 3 acres, you're going to be limited a little bit on the number of animals that you're going to be able to bring out. However, believe it or not, you're going to be able to have more life on your farm than you really think using those 3 acres. And it's going to be up to you to really test what your land can produce. But it's a great experience. And at the end of the day, you are providing your family with a healthy, holistic, regenerative approach of creating delicious food for your table while not really creating any carbon draw or a carbon footprint, so to speak, because again, I haven't mentioned anything about using fossil fuels to do any of this. Your mobile infrastructure can be easily moved by 1 or 2 adults or 1 or 2 kids. I know for a fact that my girls were able to move mobile chicken tractors for our meat birds, so that was part of their chores, is to go out and move them every day. And they were little, like 5 and 7, maybe, a little bit older than that. And that was part of what they did, was to move those animals around. Now that they're a little bit older, we don't have to worry about it. They move them all the time because it's easy and the infrastructure itself is light enough to be able to be moved. So again, let me just stress how I am not against modern technology. We are not Luddites. We have internet access. We have phones. We believe of using modern technology to improve our everyday health and our everyday well-being, but we need to start using the genius that is used to create these systems to realize, is that the direction that our genius as a people should be used, or should it be used to heal the land, to heal ourselves? We are now a nation of extremely sick people. And now I'm not going to throw out all the reasons that I believe that our nation, and especially our nation here in the US, is so sick, but it's not really hard to follow that idea of what is making us sick. Consumerism is something that we will sacrifice so much for the modern conveniences of just going to the local store and buying local because it's shipped from a couple 100 miles away. Is that really all that local? Because we don't know where that animal was. We don't know where that food comes from. Knowing your local farmer, or even more importantly, raising it yourself, you can guarantee that you know the quality of the food that you're getting, the character of the farmer that you're getting it from, whether or not they are treating and applying these foundational regenerative approaches to their animals. And meanwhile, we're creating our own personal health. We're creating robust immune systems. We're creating just good gut health, because food is a living thing, and it's important that we ingest things that are alive. That sounds kind of gross, but it makes perfect sense when you realize that you are more bacteria than you are human, and we have to feed that bacteria good quality things so that we become good quality beings. So I just have to say, I really appreciate you letting me go on this rant. Again, I can't stress enough, I am not picking a fight with the industrial agricultural model. I think that what they are doing is brilliant, the way that they are making these advances in technology and innovation, that they are able to use a robot to milk a cow, and the cow is totally okay with it because she's getting fed a sweet treat every time she goes in. I am amazed by this system. It is not the system that I think we need to be going to. I think if we pull back from that and use our genius to start healing the land, we're all going to be better off for it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Leave a comment below whether or not you agree or disagree with my idea on what the agricultural system should look like. Give us some insight on what you think it should look like, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified when we come out with new videos. Other than that, thank you so much for listening to this rant, and we'll see you on our next video.